Your lesson essential question is, how do stanzas in poems build on each other to tell a story? So we're going to be looking at poetry. Poems are specific types of writing. They don't really follow the same type of writing you're used to reading. They don't have paragraphs. Sometimes they don't really even have full sentences. They actually use stanzas. A stanza is kind of like a little mini paragraph for a poem that tells part of the story. So poems use stanzas, and poems also tell stories. So we'll be looking at what stories different poems are telling and how the stanzas build on each other and the story progresses that way. So let's look at a couple poems. This poem is called The Giant. I want you to remember that poems tell stories. Let's look at the different parts of the poem and then we'll take apart each stanza and talk about how they're building on each other to tell a story. So, first, let's look at the word stanza, which we talked about a little bit ago. Stanzas are kind of like little mini paragraphs for poems. If you look here, I've already numbered our stanzas. You can tell there's a little space between them, so you can tell that this is a stanza, this is a stanza. So we've got 5 stanzas. And each stanza builds on each other with different thoughts to tell a story. Now, poems also have lines. Lines are not necessarily a whole sentence, but the lines are organized to put rhythm. This is a line. They put rhythm to the poem. So, dodge, dart, dash, zigzag, slash. That's a whole sentence, but it's broken up into 2 lines. So we kind of pause after each line, and as the lines build, we have a rhythm to the poem. Dodge, dart, dash, zigzag, slash. I sizzle, sizzle when I dribble. I'm lightning on the court. So you can hear that I'm pausing after each line, even though it's not the end of a sentence. And then some poems, and this is one of them, some poems rhyme. And the rhyme also helps build rhythm for the poem. So I see the word court and short. See and flee. Hot and shot. Push and whoosh. Here we have 3. We have all, tall, and ball. So the rhyming words also help build a rhythm to the poem. Now let's read the poem and talk about each stanza. Dodge, dart, dash, zigzag, slash. I sizzle, sizzle when I dribble. I'm lightning on the court. My team calls me the giant, even though I'm kind of short. So, looking at stanza 1, it's talking about how he's really fast and a really good basketball player, even though he's short. Now let's look at stanza 2. The other team might laugh to see a player tiny as a flea. So stanza 2 is building on him being short and it's telling how he's so tiny that other teams might laugh at him. Moving on to stanza 3. But I'm a rocket, fiery hot, watch me soar, soar on my jump shot. So even though he's short, he jumps really high like a rocket. So again, building on stanza 2, he's saying, even though I'm short, I jump high like a rocket. Stanza 4. Stretching, flexing, push, push, push. My ball flies up and in, swoosh, whoosh. So stanza 4 is telling me he moves around and makes baskets. I show them all, you don't need tall to roll the ball. Stanza 5 is telling me short people can be good at basketball too. So this poem is telling the story of a basketball player, and it's talking about how he might be short, but he's really good, and it's giving some examples too. Each stanza built on the one before it, telling more about how he's so good. Now it's your turn. I have this poem called Ginger's Fingers. I've already numbered the stanzas for you. Let's read it, and I'm going to have you answer some questions about the stanzas this time. Ginger's Fingers. Ginger's fingers are shooting stars. They talk of adventurous trips to Mars. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. Ginger's fingers are ocean waves. They talk of fish and deep sea caves. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. Ginger's fingers are butterflies. They talk of a honey gold sunrise. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. So you can see this poem also had rhyme, and the rhyme helped give rhythm to the poem. Take a second. What was this poem all about? This poem was all about a girl named Ginger using sign language to speak. Let's take apart each stanza and talk about how they build on each other to tell the story of this little girl using sign language. Ginger's fingers are shooting stars. They talk of adventurous trips to Mars. So those two lines in stanza 1 tell me that her fingers move very fast as they tell stories. Stanza 2. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. What is stanza 2 telling us? Stanza 2 is telling us that her fingers are moving and telling stories without sound. Let's look at stanza 3. Ginger's fingers are ocean waves. They talk of fish and deep sea caves. What is stanza 3 telling us? Yeah, stanza 3 is telling us more about the stories she tells with her fingers. They move around like ocean waves. Stanza 4. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. Did you notice stanza 4 is the same as stanza 2? They're the same, and they're kind of just giving more rhythm and a different feeling to this poem. Ginger's fingers are butterflies. They talk of honey gold sunrise. I'm going to have you write about that stanza 5, in your discussion posts today. So we're not going to talk about it right now, but I want to go down to stanza 6. Fingers talking without words, signing when sounds can't be heard. I see again that stanza 6 repeats 4 and 2. So every other stanza repeats the same 2 lines. And again, that just gives feeling to the poem and rhythm to the poem. So we talked about how stanza 1 talked about what the stories her fingers tell about trips to Mars and how her fingers look like shooting stars. They're moving so fast. We talked about stanza 3, how her fingers look like waves moving around, and they tell stories of fish in the ocean. You're going to be writing in your discussion post today about what stanza 5 is telling us about Ginger's fingers. So, read it again to yourself, and then you're going to be answering a discussion post about what stanza 5 is telling us.